We communicate in so many forms. As you know, multimedia today is how we communicate. So via email, meetings, one-on-one communication, newsletters, social media. Oh, I can't mention them all, but there are so many forms, and of course you know how dangerous it is today. So anything you say, you have to consider it so carefully.
Yeah. So because communication is such an important thing, how do you prepare yourself to communicate effectively, and how do you as a manager prepare those who are under your level to communicate effectively?
I think the most important thing is to be open and listen, first of all, and that's how I prepare them, is to make sure that they understand the message and really think before responding. Make sure that they understand what is communicated to them, and then make sure that they know what they want to communicate to whoever they are talking to, whether it's staff, clients, another manager, allied health. So it's really important to make sure the messages gets across exactly the way it's intended to be.
Yeah. Going from that, you say if you don't get the message across effectively, how would you then go about resurrecting that situation?
Most probably with reflecting and making sure clarification, going back through the process and say, so what did you understand? Where did we go wrong? How can we improve in our future communication, especially with our workforces who is so multicultural, and many of us communicate in second languages. It is such a challenge to make sure, and it's all of our responsibility to make sure our communication gets across right. And I guess that's what I always ask them to do, is make sure that when you communicate, your message gets through straight.
Yeah, and cross-cultural communication is so important. Australia is, has a variety of cultures and people with mixed cultures, from their country and Australia. So is there anything that's specific to cross-cultural communication that you can tell me about? Or
I think it's really important to understand where another person is coming from. It's always good to do homework. When you work with someone, or when you know someone's from a place, it's always good to do a little bit of homework to understand where another person is coming from. Also, working with the elderly, it makes you super aware of where a person is coming from. So that's really my advice, is to understand where someone is coming from, and what something means to you does not necessarily mean it means the same to me. And that's again where clarification is so important. That would be my number one advice.
And so you work a lot with the elderly and residents with dementia and such. How important is non-verbal communication in those situations?
80%, and that's what I say to staff, is if you can communicate without words, and you can do that successfully, you're a good communicator. So I always say words are not necessary, and I really mean that. If you are a good communicator, you don't need language, but of course language is just an added bonus. So absolutely, 80% non-communicator.
And going on from that, what is sorry, let me get my thoughts together. What is a communication that you use non-verbally that most people wouldn't recognise as wrong, if you understand what I'm saying? So if I'm communicating with you and I'm doing this thing and it's turning you off but I don't notice?
Most probably touch. For some people touch is acceptable, but sometimes touch is not acceptable. The same as eye contact. Sometimes eye contact work really well. Soft direction, tone of voice. Sometimes people don't even recognise that their tone put people off. Does that answer your
definitely.
question?
I think I've been told that my tone of voice is not always, going with what I'm saying or how I'm acting. So I think definitely I can reflect on that and use that in my future to, communicate more effectively non-verbally.
Yeah, and we learn every day.